Hey, my friend, today's Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. This morning, Bitfarms hosted its Q1 2025 investor presentation. I had the opportunity to listen to the entire investor presentation. I also recently had the opportunity to go over the slide presentation, which went along with this morning's investor presentation itself. So let's take a couple of steps back, though, and kind of just gather ourselves here and figure out how we got to where we are today. So Bitfarms is one of the oldest publicly traded, Bitcoin mining companies on planet Earth. Okay, they were are a true innovator in that space. Stronghold Digital Mining came along a little bit later, but was the very first publicly traded Bitcoin mining company to walk through the front door of the SEC to go through a formal filing process and came public. And so you had then these two companies, Bitfarms, Stronghold Digital Mining. At an informal level, maybe even somewhat formal level, both companies had kind of been in communication with each other for a number of years leading up to the announced acquisition in August of 2024. Stronghold Digital Mining, right, did have two primary sites, right? One in eastern Pennsylvania named Panther Creek, one site in western Pennsylvania named Scrubgrass. Both of those facilities were not just Bitcoin mining data centers, but really mine waste to energy facilities whereby Stronghold Digital Mining owned the power asset, they owned the data centers, they owned the Bitcoin mining machines, right, in most cases, and the company was truly vertically integrated in every sense of the word that I know to be true. You know, you own your own power generation, your own data centers, you manage those data centers, you own the Bitcoin mining machines, true vertical integration. The challenge is that the market at the time that Stronghold came public was really only interested in the asset light model. Hey, we're just going to go out there, acquire some power, acquire some data centers, get our Bitcoin mining machines in there. We're gonna go to work on that. And hey, you know what? That model worked out really, really well for the companies that did it. Okay. Fast forward to say like towards the end of last year, right, August, when the merger was announced, I think the landscape had started to maybe evolve a little bit, right? Where you started to see more and more companies begin to realize, I don't know that it's going to necessarily work to just kind of go out there and try to find some cheap power to plug in a bunch of Bitcoin mining machines. We might have to up our game a bit and figure out how to add a little bit more value into this process, right? This process which, in fairness, has served us so very well up until this point. So the acquisition is announced. Okay, I think it was a win-win deal for both parties. Stronghold Digital Mining shareholders, right? For one share of Stronghold, you'd get 2.52 shares of Bitfarms. So that's great, right? Hey, you've got some meaningful equity in the combined company, thereby allowing the potential for the shares you have to appreciate in value. For Bitfarms, it really meant tapping into the North American market in a major, major way and acquiring two world-class sites, right, in terms of Panther Creek and Scrubgrass. Now, you and I both, let me phrase it this way. I've interacted with people from around planet Earth who had an interest in Stronghold Digital Mining. And there's absolutely no way that any of these individuals would have likely ever heard of Stronghold Digital Mining or had an interest in Stronghold Digital Mining had it not been for the fact that there was a Bitcoin angle, right? Hey, Stronghold, right, came public as a Bitcoin mining company. The same is arguably true in many ways for Bitfarms, right? A lot of shareholders who have been shareholders of Bitfarms since the beginning, I think a very plausible argument could be made that the reason why they became excited and interested in Bitfarms is because Bitfarms, is a Bitcoin mining company. Today, things are changing. Bitfarms is, and not just Bitfarms, there's a number of other companies as well in the Bitcoin mining space, right? Hey, I think Bitfarms is really pivoting in a very concentrated, focused, relentless way away from Bitcoin mining and towards, let's just call it, high performance computing, right? HPC or HPC AI. Now, the dilemma is that I'm imagining myself, right, at Bitfarms, and I'm saying, hey, like if we need to do like an equity raise, if we need to sort of do anything with the financial markets, it's like, hey, like our shareholder base, it's all, I would think, largely Bitcoin proponents, Bitcoin enthusiasts, people who are really passionate about Bitcoin. We have, right, as a company, meaning Bitfarms, we have a very sizable and meaningful and useful Bitcoin mining fleet, for which like hundreds of millions of dollars of like money was spent to acquire. So it's like, hey, I think at some level, it's like you gotta honor still, and the company's doing this, right? They gotta like honor the fact that, hey, what got us to this point is Bitcoin mining. And like the vast majority of our shareholders are Bitcoin, mining enthusiasts. Yet we also inherently understand that, man, Bitcoin mining economics are tough and getting tougher. Bitcoin mining economics are as volatile and as unpredictable as things can get. Bitcoin mining is a very tough business. It's an insanely capital intensive business. Man, we gotta get the hell off this hamster wheel at some point, or at least diversify some of our revenue, right? So that we can run a business and not what can feel like this endless like loop of raising money, buying machines, trying to refurbish a fleet, hoping and praying, right, that there be hash rate to support these investments that we've made, right? I shouldn't say hash rate, but rather hash prices, right? That will support these investments that we've made. And that's a very challenging conversation to have with us, right? Because it's like, hey, you ask a lot of people, like, I don't know, like this HPC AI, like, running data centers, maybe turning the company into some sort of like quasi real estate investment trust. Hey, for as lucrative as that may be, for as predictable and as stable as the revenue source can be, I don't know that we're going to have the same shareholder base in 6 months or even 2 years, right, than what we have now. Because now is when there's a really good chance that if we're going to see a major bull run in the price of Bitcoin, hey, it's got to start happening pretty soon. Yes, Bitcoin is up to a degree since April of 2024 when the Bitcoin halving took place. But I don't think that any of us really feel as if though we've seen that real exciting, just, blast off moment where Bitcoin has kind of really seen some serious gains post halving, at least not yet. And typically, if history is going to be any guide, it's a 12 to roughly 18-month window in which, right, we've seen those real strong moves. And now we are, I believe, in like month 13. So, like it's between now and October, more or less, that we'd really expect to hopefully see some kind of meaningful bull run in the price of Bitcoin, in through the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'd love for it to happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen. And I'm noticing that, at least certainly in the case of Bitfarms, as well as a couple other companies out there, hey, I don't know that Bitfarms wants to say, guys and gals, we're, hey, in maybe another year and a half, 2 years, we might have to start making some serious decisions about raising hundreds of millions of dollars again to buy more Bitcoin mining machines. The thing is, right, like, look, I'm passionate about Bitcoin, all right, as I'm sure you are too. And I actually am, conceptually, I love the idea of Bitcoin mining. I do. And I have done Bitcoin mining, and, it's not, sometimes you can do something without, think about the overhead that a publicly traded company like Bitfarms has to like deal with, right? and think of the difference between, say, you and I. Hey, we got a couple of Bitcoin mining machines. Hey, we do some stuff on the side. We're not so concerned about electric prices because we're just saying, hey, I want to kind of acquire maybe some Bitcoin in a non-KYC manner. Of course, I'm not speaking for myself. I want to do everything by the letter of the law, right, and be very transparent and all of that kind of stuff, right? But I'm just saying, for a lot of entities, right, be it individuals, governments, right, organizations that deal with lots of cash, and they got to figure out ways to, like, what do we do with this? Bitcoin mining is a very interesting landscape, right, through which to basically turn electricity into money. But like when you're running a publicly traded company, where, as somebody pointed out today, we come up, Bitfarms comes out with an earnings report, and it's like a river of losses. I mean, I get it. It's like, how do you call it an earnings report? Whatever. Look at, guys. The point I'm trying to make here is that what Bitfarms is attempting to do is the right thing for the business, right? To try to, like, get this business onto a sustainable footing where revenue can be predictable, where there could be, really useful earnings, actual earnings, not, hey, the price of Bitcoin went up and, we sort of have some EPS as a result of that. I mean, real constructive earnings. But that may not really be what you're interested in, right? You may be interested in like a pure play, Bitcoin story. And if that's the case, I think CleanSpark, correct me if I'm wrong, I think CleanSpark has committed to being 100% pure play Bitcoin mining till the end, right? And again, I hope I'm not mischaracterizing that, but that's the impression that I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong. Bitfarms, by contrast, I think is sort of taking the position of, like, you know what? Hey, we have a meaningful position in Bitcoin. And who knows, right? If Bitcoin tomorrow shoots to $1 million a coin, suddenly Bitcoin mining is just obscenely profitable. Obscenely profitable. Who knows, right? Like, maybe all of a sudden, the HPC AI plans are shelved for the time being, and it's a question of, hey, let's get those Bitcoin mining machines that currently, I don't know if you read this or not, but, Bitfarms has an Argentina operation, which currently is not energized due to some issues with the local company that provides electricity. It's a whole rigmarole. I suspect that if that's not resolved quickly, those Bitcoin mining machines will get repatriated to North America and plugged in somewhere. Kind of a tough situation there. If anything, okay, I don't want to get off on a side tangent, but my point here is that if Bitcoin just shoots to $1 million tomorrow, Bitcoin mining is obscenely, obnoxiously profitable. Then who knows, right? Maybe HPC AI goes to the wayside, but I think at this point, man, it's like, dude, you can't, like, as a business, right? Yeah, how do you can't even make really long-term plans when you're in a boom and bust cycle like this, where you just don't know. There's so much unpredictability. The capex is, like, astronomical, whereas with HPC AI, if you can pull it off, things are a lot more stable, right? Things are a lot more predictable, and valuation-wise, things can look a lot different. I'm probably going to get this paraphrasing of a comment made during the investor presentation today a little bit wrong, but yeah, I think it was either Ben or Jeff mentioned that, currently Bitfarms is trading at about, like, roughly, oh gosh, I may get this wrong, so I want to be careful not to totally mischaracterize things, but let me phrase it this way. If Bitfarms were to be valued as a real estate investment trust with a bunch of data centers, the valuation would be a lot higher than if, they continue to be valued as just a Bitcoin mining company. So, the company's not going to be releasing any more Bitcoin mining production updates on a monthly basis. I mean, let that sink in for a second. The pivot is happening. So you got to ask yourself, do I want to stay involved with Bitfarms? Now, for a lot of you, the answer, I think, is going to be, well, dude, Steven, man, like, I'm so underwater in this thing. Like, what am I going to do? Sell for a massive loss? I mean, maybe, right? But I think, I understand the human psychology behind this. It's kind of more like, all right, well, look at, they're talking about HPC AI. Okay, maybe there's a chance this works. If this does work, hey, the stock price might actually go up in a meaningful way. And if that happens, I can maybe sell my shares at break even, or who knows, maybe at a slight profit, right? So I get where that mindset comes in then, right? Where it's like, hey, look, dude, I signed up for Bitcoin mining. Now it's like the company's reinventing itself as some sort of data center play for HPC AI. Hey, maybe I'm not thrilled with that, but like, what is it going to take for the stock price to go up? I mean, at the end of the day, right? If Bitfarms tomorrow said, you know what, guys, we can make $1 billion effing dollars a year in pure profit manufacturing trumpets or trombones at these two facilities, I don't think anybody's going to really give a crap about that. They're just like, great. Will the stock price go up? Yes. The stock went up 100-fold. Awesome. I can cash in some spectacular profits, right? So I understand that there's a certain amount of agnosticism that will likely kind of like set in when it comes to like, all right, I just want to see the company's stock do well so I can kind of get out of my position, right? But for somebody who right now is like, hey, I'm interested in Bitcoin mining companies, I kind of like being involved with Bitcoin mining economics, for better or for worse, I don't know that Bitfarms is really the play, right? So I think we're going to see a turnover in the shareholder base. I have to say, there are some artistic renderings of what Panther Creek has the potential to look like as a result of some of the planning, that Bitfarms is putting into that site. At the risk of sounding kind of overly emotional about some of this stuff, man, I like, it was so moving to see that. It was so beautiful. I mean, there were ducks like in this little like pond. There were people walking around. It was like a sunny, beautiful day. The buildings were just gorgeous. I mean, this thing looked like it could be part of like Apple's Cupertino circular campus. I mean, this thing was just gorgeous. The thought did cross my mind, well, where the heck is the actual mine waste to energy facility in all of this? Because, that's kind of a dusty, dirty, kind of like not so pretty looking operation, right? So that's presumably somewhere just outside the artistic renderings. Who knows, maybe it's encircled by an 80-foot fence or wall. Yeah, it's an incredible investment that Bitfarms seems to be suggesting that they're willing to make in a part of Pennsylvania that I definitely know would benefit tremendously from this type of investment. I think it would be, Nesquehoning, which is the small community, really pretty much where Panther Creek is located. I mean, what a thing to be proud of, to say, hey, like our community here is home to one of the preeminent HPC AI data centers, like in North America, quite possibly. So, like the artistic renderings were just absolutely gorgeous, and I was very moved by them. But then, hey, I kind of put on my sober hat, and I'm like, all right, this is beautiful. But, to get from where Panther Creek is today to that vision, it's a journey, right? I mean, let's kind of keep it real. It's a journey. It's definitely not going to be a straightforward pathway. I say that with the benefit of having done quite a bit of homework into the operations of another company called TerraWolf, which you may be familiar with, and learning more about their Lake Mariner facility and what's been going on there as they build up their HPC offerings. And just seeing how, like, hey, these are guys who are freaking like really well connected into the construction business. I mean, like, and yet they've had issues themselves, right? They've run into different things that need to be addressed, right? And so, the road ahead for Bitfarms is definitely there, right? There's a road there. But man, it's going to be, look, it's not going to just be downhill, right? It's going to be a lot of uphill hiking. It could feel like climbing, Mount Everest barefoot sometimes, I suspect. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that this is something that has the potential to come to fruition. It would be a phenomenal benefit to Pennsylvania. It would be a phenomenal benefit to these communities in Pennsylvania that truly have been a bit forgotten. And And, to the extent that the Panther Creek mine waste to energy facility, which I admit, again, wasn't in these artistic renderings. I didn't really see it in there. Presumably it's just off to the side. To the extent that, hey, I think it's going to take another 15 or so years for the remaining accessible mine waste here in Pennsylvania to be cleaned up by these purpose-built facilities. Hey, to the extent Panther Creek can stay operational, keep doing its environmentally beneficial work, that's a big deal to me. That's a really, 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 really big deal to me. That's one of the main reasons why I was so passionate about the mission and purpose of Stronghold Digital Mining. Right? Hey, these mine waste to energy facilities had a reason to stay online because the energy they were producing, right, were essentially could be sold to the grid, but also power Bitcoin mining data centers. My understanding is that like a Panther Creek mine waste to energy site, specifically the power plant, would serve as the equivalent, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of like a diesel backup generator to aspects of the operation or something to that effect. We'll have to read a little bit more about that. But suffice it to say, look, it's pointless to go into the details of like, well, hey, how much EBITDA did Bitfarms have? What's going on? Because all of that is sort of talking about what's kind of like in the present, but more and more in the past. And of course, the stock market is all about the future. And the future for Bitfarms, I don't think is Bitcoin. It's part of the Bitfarms story now, in through this period of time where, hey, hopefully you have a bull run in the hash prices and in the price of Bitcoin. But I'd be very surprised that if Bitcoin, if Bitcoin economics remain kind of like where they're at now, I would be hard pressed to believe that Bitfarms is going to say we are prepared to raise $200-300 million, right, to energize Bitcoin mining data centers and kind of do this all over again. I sense that Ben's vision, right, for the business, the entire Bitfarms team's vision for the business is to really kind of get beyond, like go beyond Bitcoin, right? And I think that's something that not all of us are going to really be comfortable with, right? You may not be comfortable with it. You may be tolerating it as a means to an end. The end being, dude, I need the stock price to go up. I can't afford to take this loss. I need the stock to go up so that I can sell the hell out of this company, right? Whatever, I get it. There's a lot of frustration out there. Sell the heck out of it and move on, right? Or who knows, maybe Riot comes and acquires Bitfarms and, there's something that happens there. I'm always going to be a proponent of Bitfarms doing what Bitfarms is attempting to do because of these sites. Scrubgrass in western Pennsylvania, Panther Creek here in eastern Pennsylvania. Those drawings are just so beautiful. It's really amazing if that comes true. If even like half of that vision is brought into reality. What an amazing thing for this part of Pennsylvania. So again, hey, I'm biased. I live in Pennsylvania. I live in the same zone of the grid as Panther Creek, right? PJM, PPL zone of the grid. And so, it's a big deal to me that, and these, hey, these communities are kind of where my forefathers came from. I appreciate deeply that Bitfarms is choosing to make these investments in this part of Pennsylvania. I really am. And so I want to see Bitfarms succeed. At the same time, I acknowledge that for a lot of people, it's all about Bitcoin. And nobody really gives a shit about whatever, data centers or HPC AI, whatever. At this point, it's just like a means to an end. Like, I want to see the stock price go up so I can get out of the position. And I'm with you. I hear you. That's fair. But I'll tell you, the vision that Bitfarms is laying out is one that's quite exciting. I think it can be transformative for the business, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and a lot of capital. But you know what? Sometimes really cool, amazing things take time. Okay, my friend, let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll be diving in to respond. It's been a while since I've caught up with you. Okay, my friend, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll speak again very, very soon.